I'll ask Annunziata Rees-Mogg. What's wrong with Keir Starmer? Annunziata, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike, and I was delighted to hear your plank of the day. It was 6 years ago yesterday that
Was it?
tomorrow, that you, me, and Russell Quirk sat in a broom cupboard and did the very first one.
Wow, how fascinating. Well, I'm hoping we'll be able to get you back on Plank of the Week at some point over the course of the next few weeks. While I
There's
know
too many
you're not in London
candidates.
very often, but we can always do it down the line.
So many candidates. So what a world.
Yeah, I'm seeing that you're up there in the wilds of this country. How's the weather there? What's -5 in London? What's it doing there?
-5 here too. I think it will be for most of today, but snow forecast for later.
Yes, and are the kids at school or have the schools shut down?
No, they're open. They're complaining that it's cold getting to school, but I hope the schools have the heating on, or is there another environmental measure so they'll freeze all day?
Oh yes, no doubt. Let me go back to my original question. What's wrong with Keir Starmer? I know you might not have enough time to answer that, but what's wrong with him?
He's a man of no principles. He's a man of no political vision. He's a man who believes in nothing other than administration and law. And when events, dear boy, events don't go as he thinks they should, he doesn't know what to do. And
Mm.
this is a prime example of that. He's completely clueless because he hadn't expected this. The US had totally ignored him and kept him out of the loop on it, perfectly sensibly, because he'd be no use in any such action in either direction. He wouldn't persuade in favour or against. And he doesn't know what leg to stand on. He's probably going to his dear chum, Hermer, to try and find out what the legal position is that will most benefit the communists and not the free West world.
Right, because when he was asked the question, can you not say whether this is illegal? He just said, "I believe in international law," which by London Bridge. Um, Sometimes we would go off air. I remember once we went off air for about 4 hours. And then when we came back on air, we couldn't do anything apart from just talk, which is what I'm doing now because that's what I'm good at. This one from Rob, who says it's -7 in my part of Norfolk. Um, and then you've got Reggie, who says the Afghan Olympic rowing team are practicing in the Channel today. That's very good. Um, and doesn't know what leg to stand on, says Vic. Bit of a heron then. Yeah, sorry, Annunziata, we just lost you there for a moment. But yeah, let's go back to Starmer because his one sort of raison d'etre is international law and human rights, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what he built his career on. That's the only thing I think he's ever demonstrated real belief in. And the problem is, it neither has all the answers, and a lot of the time when it does have answers, they're the wrong answers. That the international courts are heavily influenced by countries that don't have legal systems that we agree with or support, or think are just. In fact, many of the rulings that it comes out with go against Western interests because of the proportion of countries that have different views
Mm.
and different traditions. And we need to start being bold and brave and ignoring international law. And if we look at the ECHR, which is clearly an international court, it comes up with rulings that are so against the British interest, that are so against other European nations' interests. If you look at Switzerland, for example, where it ruled against a referendum they had, that's anti-democratic, that is anti-justice. And we have to be bold enough to say these courts are not always right.
Mm.
But Keir Starmer is a man who could never do that.
Well, you worked in the European Parliament as an MEP for the Brexit Party. He's now talking about making a sovereign decision, which sounds slightly authoritarian and worrying to me, about rejoining and not necessarily the customs union, but having closer ties with the EU. And when I keep mentioning this word sovereign, these words sovereign decisions, it sounds like something that the government is trying to impose on the people and making it impossible to reverse.
Along with 17 odd million people in this country, I voted in favour of Brexit. And my main motivation was to regain sovereignty. But our sovereignty is a democratic sovereignty. And that is the bit of the puzzle that Keir Starmer seems to be missing. He thinks it should be autocratic. He thinks he is, in effect, a president who can decide on our behalf. And I think that's completely wrong. His manifesto was clear. We would not rejoin the single market or the customs union or the European Union as a whole. And he must not only stick to the letter of that, but the spirit of that, because people voted in good faith, erroneously, in my view. I was not ever going to vote Labour, but they voted believing we would not rejoin. And rejoining by the back door is just duplicitous.
It really is. And in terms of the way that he is kind of conducting the government as well, duplicitous is a very good word for you to use, because he puts out these ludicrous sort of tweets, like the one he's done today about freezing rail fares, as if that's the only thing that anybody cares about. If you use the trains often enough, you know that it's not frozen rail fares that is required. It's just a more useful service that actually runs on time and doesn't need a replacement bus service every 5 minutes, you know. But he really does seem to be a man who has no moral compass of any kind. He doesn't seem to have a heart. He doesn't seem to have a soul. He's sort of like a husk of a man, isn't he?
Well, I don't think any of us have any idea what he stands for. That he started off on the very far left of Labour, joining the lawyers' forum that was connected to communism. He then supported our lovely Jeremy Corbyn, who no one could say was a moderate. Then he abandoned all that and became frightfully moderate. And now he's somewhere wishy-washy in the middle. Who knows? Because there is no core to him that actually believes in our country or in any way of making our country great again. And this is a huge problem that the British public don't know what they'll get one day to the next, because he leaps from issue to issue, always trying to hide the previous scandal. And if you go back over the last 18 months, there have been an extraordinary number of scandals, of problems, of U-turns, of personal affairs that have really marred this government, but also marred our country. And he just tries to throw dead cats on the table to distract us and makes the problems worse and worse, whether that's on immigration or ruining our education system as they are at the moment, undermining employment, or giving away the Chagos and paying billions for the pleasure. He never gets the decision right.
Yes, I see that there was a bit of movement in the House of Lords last night on Chagos. There was quite a big vote against the government's policy on that. So do you hope that maybe that can be reversed?
I very much hope so. I'm very intrigued as to what the Venezuela issue tells us about what Trump might be thinking. Because with the delay that the House of Lords has managed to engineer, of course, we're in a ping pong match at the moment. The House of Lords voted through 4 amendments that now have to go back to the House of Commons for them to vote on. With Labour's majority, those amendments will be kicked out. It will go back. It's not going to make a difference, I think, ultimately in British law. But the delay gives time for Donald Trump to potentially renege on agreeing to this deal. And given his attitude in Venezuela, which is very much against the Chinese, and this Chagos deal seems to be heavily influenced in favour of the Chinese, it could be an interesting moment as to whether he now stops it.
Yes, it's going to be fascinating stuff. It's going to be a fascinating year as well. And Annunziata, I hope to speak to you lots and lots over the course of the next few weeks and months. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely day and keep your
Thank you.
woolly hat on is my advice if you go out.
I
Because it's
will.
pretty
Keep up the
chilly.
good work.
Annunziata Rees-Mogg there talking to us from her rural idyll up in Lincolnshire somewhere.